Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to tell you about this podcast. It's called The DK Project, but it's really The Darren Show. The DK Project is a radio show, but without the radio. So sit back, buckle up, and enjoy the ride.
Let's go!
Hey, everybody, it's your old boy, DK. Brand new podcast for you today. Novelist Neil Perry Gordon sits down with us to talk a little today about what he's been up to, his latest book, Hope City, which is a tale about the gold rush in Alaska in the late 1800s. Neil was nice enough to offer the DK Project podcast listeners a special offer, a free download of his book, The Bomb Squad. Just send him an email at neilperrygordon@gmail.com. All he's asking in return is a review on Amazon or Goodreads, so check that out. Neil's books are available on Audible, Amazon, bookstores, pretty much anywhere you get books. So check it out. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil Perry Gordon. So I want to welcome everybody back to the show. We've got a special guest in today, a world-renowned, are we going world-renowned author?
Yeah, we'll do it.
Why not? Mr. Neil Perry Gordon is with us. He was nice enough to cut away some time today so we could dive in. He's got a new book coming out called Hope City. Well, first of all, how are you, sir?
I am well. Thank you, Darren. How are you?
I am good. And we're finding you in the Big Apple, right? You're East Coaster.
I am. I'm in the epicenter of our lovely Corona catastrophe. Yes.
Okay. So, obviously it's on the forefront of everybody's mind. So let's get it out of the way. How bad is it? What are you seeing?
I don't see anything. I'm home. So I don't go out.
Oh, you haven't?
The grocery store. That's my brave venture. So we head out to the grocery store. I do like once a week, and it's my courageous outing. So I go out there. I'm like, well, I'm not like a coward like I was when this began, like 7 weeks ago.
Right.
have more courage now when I go.
But you're going full mask, gloves, the whole bit, and everybody you see is that way.
Yeah, everyone's in mask and gloves. So, it's interesting because now you really focus on people's eyes. And as a writer, it's interesting perspective it's amazing how you just can see everyone's emotion in their eyes. I mean, either they're showing that they're frightened or they're angry or they're happy or they're trying to express happiness. So it's a very interesting time to experience human behavior in an accentuated way.
That's interesting because I'm in the middle of the country where we're protesting that we need to reopen everything, and I'm kind of on the fence, but that's a whole nother bag of bolts. But New York is hit hard. New York is like you're in the hot spot right there, man. That's crazy. So it's interesting to hear, and I talk to people all across the country for different stuff that I do and for the podcast, but it's really interesting to hear how it varies as you travel across the country and the way that people's perception of it and how they're handling it and what they're doing. And it's a different time. It's crazy. And the real question is, how long until we have a book out about the pandemic? Is it in the works or what?
Well, you have to first answer that question. But, what I've been thinking about, I write historical fiction.
Okay.
So, I mean, for this to become history, I'll have to wait a while. But I could write about the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I would have a good perspective on how human behavior reacted at that time, because, we're pretty much have the same reaction, I'm imagining, that they had back then, quarantining and wearing masks and outbreaks. Like they had two cities, St. Louis and Philadelphia, where Philadelphia decided to have a Memorial Day parade, or was it a Labor Day parade? I forget what it was, and be open. It's like the conversations we're having now.
Right.
Be closed or open, and they decided to open, invite, and St. Louis decided to close. And then there was a big outbreak in Philadelphia after that, a lot of deaths, and St. Louis mitigated it. So we're experiencing the same thing. Of course, we have better medicines now, better healthcare than they did, but human behavior hasn't changed. It's the same. So I might write about that at one point, because I'll use the experience from today to write about something 100 years ago. which is my style.
Interesting. Okay, so for the listeners who aren't familiar, how did all this start? Where did you just you knew you were going to be a writer from the beginning, or how did this all come about?
When I was born, my mother put a pen in my hand and said, "Start writing." No, not really. I was always a writer, but I was a writer of business articles, never dabbled into the fiction until 2018 when my first novel was published, A Cobbler's Tale. So I have 5 published novels since that one in 2018. I have another one that the manuscript has just been finished and will be going to the editor next month. And I just taken my fingertips to my laptop for the sequel to Hope City, which hopefully will be out sometime in the fall.
Wow. So 2 years, you're just pounding these things out. And these aren't light reads. These are novels.
These are 80,000 word novels. Yeah. Yeah. So it takes about 6 months for a novel to be written. From the time I start till it's published.
So is there flow to them? Like I when I knew you were coming on, I jumped into The Cobbler's Tale on audio, and I'm going to say 3/4 of the way through it right now.
Oh, cool.
But is there some regularity to them? Like Pincus, the main dude in the Cobbler's Tale, is he? Right. Are we seeing him later on? I was
no, but you see Moshe later. Moshe, his son.
Yep.
You'll see him in the Righteous One. He's a 60-year-old man in the Righteous One. So it's a follow-up to A Cobbler's Tale. It's my 3rd book.
Okay.
And who's a child in the book you're reading, Cobbler's Tale. He is now a 60-year-old man.
Oh, I got
Righteous.
You.
Yeah.
So Pincus went by the wayside then, I'm guessing, if the
son
is 60.
You haven't finished the book yet, so you'll find out what happens to Pincus.
Yeah. No, I'm actually enjoying it. I dove right into it, and it's good. I'm really having a good time with it. Now, a couple questions that came up while I was diving into this thing. So you're going from writing business stuff, which I'm guessing was for a company somewhere, correct?
For my company, yeah, I'm in the interior design business.
Oh, very cool. Oh, I got to talk to you about an interior designer I know. Huh. She's at home right now. Oh. She dabbles. Anyway, when you're writing these books, what do you like? The Cobbler's Tale, your first one. What was the inspiration? Like, how do you decide? All right, I'm gonna write historical stuff, and here's the setting, and really, where does it come from?
Well, the Cobbler's Tale, Pincus was my great grandfather.
Oh, okay.
And Moshe was my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
So there's, as you can imagine, if you're reading the story or listening to it in Audible, they did come to America. My great grandfather, Pincus, came to New York, to the Lower East Side in 1910 from an area of what is now southern Poland, called Krishka, in the area called Galicia, which was part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire in 1910. He left his pregnant wife, Clara, and his 3 children there while he came here to get established as a cobbler.
Wow, so it's all real.
That really happened. Wow. And he really left them there, and war broke out, and they ended up in the war zone. I make Pincus much more heroic and courageous than he really was.
You have to embellish a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, it would not be an interesting story if I didn't. And so I use their story as inspiration. And that got me into historical fiction, which I love anyway, because I love reading historical fiction. I like learning about history while I'm being entertained through a fun story. So I like writing that style because I too learn as I do research about different times in history, which I learned from Cobbler's Tale, and I learned in Moonflower, which was a story in 1670s, also in the New York area, but it was Dutch controlled, and the Native American Indians were very prominent back then. The Righteous One, which is not historical fiction, it's just a continuation of A Cobbler's Tale, but it goes into metaphysical fiction, which is a sort of a journey into the consciousness and into the dream world and the whole other type of a spiritual aspect to it. And then there's the Bomb Squad, which takes place 1916, right before the U.S. Gets involved in World War I. So that's a historical fictional tale. It's about two men, both German Americans. One is a German spy and one is a New York City police detective, and it's their clash of the patriots between these two men is what the Bomb Squad is about. And then Hope City, which is the new one, which is about to come out, takes place in 1898 in Alaska during the gold rush.
Ooh, I like
and
that.
17-year-old boy, teenager, just graduates high school in San Francisco and heads up for the summer to Alaska to seek his fortune.
Really?
And it's more of a trip down the rabbit hole than anything else for him. And it's a very interesting tale. I go up to Hope, Alaska, every summer.
Oh.
And I would have gone this summer, and I would have gone gloriously with these books in my hand about Hope. But it seems that the gods do not want me to come.
Wow.
So
you do you have a house there or what? You go, is that?
I have friends there who I stay with. So yeah, good friends who I go up and visit.
So that one's coming out on June 20th. What?
The summer solstice. That's why we're doing it on June 20th.
Oh, nice.
So we were looking for a date. My publicist was saying, you should launch this on a like some sort of holiday in June to make it a significant event. So she was doing some research. She came up with Log Cabin Day, and I'm like,
I was going to say there aren't a lot of holidays in June, is there?
There's nothing. Log Cabin Day is all you got. I said, nah, we're not doing Log Cabin Day. So I talked to my friend Tom in Alaska, who's my buddy up there, and he goes, hey, the biggest day of the year is in June in Alaska. It's the summer solstice, June 20th, 2020. And, everywhere in the North where you have winter, you really celebrate the summer, but you certainly celebrate it a lot more in Alaska when the summer is so much shorter.
Well, don't they have a daylight situation there too, where they're
They do. At midnight, if you're there at midnight, it's like at the middle of the day.
Man.
Bright as can be. It gets a little dark, especially down in the southern part of Alaska in the summertime for like an hour or two, around 2-3 in the morning. Once you're up further north, like if you're in Nome or even north of that, it never gets dark at all. But then on the converse, in the wintertime, the sun never comes up.
Oh.
So that's a bummer.
Sometimes I feel like that here in Minnesota. We get so much, it's so gray. It's like, I don't know how people do it. You have to be on so much medication or be a real night owl, nocturnal city, man. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, no, I love the sun. I'm a sun worshiper. When that sun comes out, I'm just like, let it shine on me, let it warm me. I need that sun. And we need vitamin D3. That's a big thing. That's a big deficiency we have in terms of fighting corona. So D3, you get it from the sun, you can get it as a supplement, but that's a very good vitamin to have to keep yourself, your immune system healthy. Well,
and I've noticed that I've been spending a lot of time in my studio. My studio is completely blacked out other than, the lighting in here, but no windows, none of that. And it's like, I get a little tired and crabby some afternoons, and I'm thinking that's what it is. I'm not seeing the light of day. So I don't know how you could live in that.
We're not meant to be, as humans, we are not meant to be in those conditions. We are meant to be outdoors and getting sun, and we need it.
That's it. I'm planning my retirement in Colorado or California. I need 300 days of sun a year. That's a good number.
It's a good number.
Right now, I think we get 50. We get the opposite. Minnesota's going through a change, but I like the idea of this Hope City because I'm big into this gold rush stuff. This, Discovery Channel has the gold rush stuff on there. And I don't watch a lot of TV, but I do watch that because I just think it's crazy how the whole gold thing comes together.
It is crazy. What's interesting is the emotional motivation that people get. When gold, I'm writing the book now about the gold rush in Nome, which is my sequel to the one in Hope. And what's interesting about Nome was discovered in 1896 by, they call them the Three Lucky Swedes. These guys happened to be up there just purely by chance. And no one knew there was gold up there. I mean, people thought there might have been some gold, and they, some studies that they said there was gold there. And everyone was now in Dawson City in Canada and the Yukon, which was about 2,000 miles to the east of where Nome is.
Wow.
But these guys discovered in Nome like an enormous gold find. They became so wealthy. I mean, it was millions of dollars of gold that they found in
1800, huh?
1896, 1997. So they discovered it on rivers, inland from the beach.
Man.
But what was remarkable is in 1899, they discovered the gold in the sand on the beach. So you don't have to go out and make yourself crazy, and use these digging and placer mining and tearing up the earth. It was right in the sand in Nome. So people were just digging in the sand, pulling out gold right out of the sand. And they had 20 miles wide of beach, about 50 feet deep of beach, and tents set up as far as the eye can see up and down the beach of people just staking their claim. You pitched a tent, that was your claim, you dug there. And people were pulling out a couple $100 a day of gold back in 1899, 1900.
Wow.
It was just an incredible time. Wyatt Earp made an appearance in 1899, 1900. He opened up a saloon there called the Dexter. So he's part of the history as well. So it's kind of fun to have
in that time frame, how long did it take to get from New York or from the lower states to get there? I mean, it takes an eternity now if you're on the ground.
Yeah, well, if you're going from like Seattle or San Francisco, you would take a steamship back in the day, and you would go up through over the Gulf of Alaska, stop in a town in the Aleutian Islands called Unalaska, and then you would continue up the Bering Strait till you get to Nome. And actually going to Nome was a lot easier, and also to go into Hope too was a lot easier because you go by boat and you just land on the coast and you're there. Unlike going to Dawson City, the Klondike, that was a journey of unfathomable proportions. You had to climb what they called the Golden Steps, which was these steps up a mountain pass. And the Canadian government required you to carry 2,000 pounds of your own supplies.
Wow.
Be allowed to cross the border. And of course, who can carry 2,000 pounds on your back up a mountain pass? So you have to make several trips. And then once you got over with, if you made it and you survived with your supplies, then you either had to knock down some trees and build yourself a raft or buy some sort of river raft and then go down the river for another 150 miles before you got to where the Klondike was and Dawson City. And this was not just like a little float down the river. This was with your supplies on a wooden raft through rapids. So if you didn't drown and you finally got there, then you were with 30,000 other people all going crazy looking for gold. So people went to all ends to search for gold, including Jack London. And Jack London was an interesting guy. He, of course, he wrote Call of the Wild, but he went up to the Klondike. He experienced it there, and he makes an appearance in Hope City as a special guest coming into Hope City.
They had to find so much gold, otherwise, why would you even make the effort? I mean, like it had to be so lucrative to people dying. It's.
Yeah, people died.
Wow. So this book comes out on June 20th. How long until there's an audio version? Like, how does that process work?
There'll be an audio version not too long. I already got the narrator. So, when I do audiobooks, I use Amazon. They own Audible, and they also have this marketplace that connects writers with narrators.
Really?
So I put my book up for audition. Then people will come back with with audition tapes, recordings for me to listen to. Yeah. And then you try to find the right type of voice for your book.
Oh, that's cool.
So then it's you have to think. You have to have in your mind, okay, what is the person supposed to sound like who's telling my story?
Well, I'm sure that's a huge part of it with the I mean, you're spending 6 months putting this thing together. You got to have that sound. You got to know what that sound is, in the first week, that what you would assume you want it to sound like, right?
Right, because people listening on Audible, they're not going to put up with more than 5 minutes if it's annoying.
Yeah.
They voice that brings you into the story, that you forget you're listening to it, that it feels like you're reading the story. You get lost in it. You're listening to Cobbler's Tale now, so you know what it's like.
Yep.
So you want to have that connection to the story. And, it's interesting because they've done scientific studies of what's the difference between reading a book and listening to a book. And technically on the brain, there's no difference. It's the same.
Really?
So it's the same effect. Yes, the same effect we have. And it's wonderful to listen to books too, because you could do that when you're doing other things. I always listen to something Audible when I run every day. Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes it's listening how famous writers write, learn about their crafts. So I try to make my time productive while I'm running at the same time. So that's helpful.
Yeah, it helps the time go by. That's for sure. I was curious because I do some voiceover commercial work, and but I've never the novel reading just doesn't do it for me. I wouldn't be any good at it. But I've listened to a lot of them. I mean, I drive a lot for my day job, and it really helps pass the time. But some people are really good at it, like the different voices, the flow, keeping you interested. And as I was listening to this, I'm like, I deal with all these people in the voiceover world all the time, but to get the writer's perspective on it, to see what you look for and how you go about that process. So how many auditions would you generally get for a particular book?
You get a couple, 4 or 5 auditions.
Or do they just hit a chapter?
They'll read you give them it's like 5 minutes audition tape you get. So they'll read about 5 minutes of your manuscript, and pretty much in the first minute if they got it or not. Wow. They could be good readers. Good narrators. That doesn't matter. But I don't want someone with a Southern voice if I'm narrating a story about Jewish New Yorkers.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't fit. So I have certain. You have to have your main character needs to be represented in a way that how I imagine it in my mind.
So have you used the same narrator for the follow-up books, or do you switch every time?
Well, I use Michael Fishbein, who you're listening to now, for Cobbler's Tale. He did the first 2 books. He did A Cobbler's Tale and Moonflower. Then I have 2 new narrators for my next 2 books, Righteous One and The Bomb Squad. Each one will be different.
Wow.
Then for Hope City, I'll be reusing again the same guy who's now doing Bomb Squad.
So do you think that in this day and age of technology and everything, this has to be, and obviously you started hitting it hard in 2018, but like with Amazon and the Audible and do you really even print books anymore? The ratio, is it a majority of people grab it on a Kindle, or is it, do people still buy a lot of paperback books? People still buy paperback. I have all my books available in paperback, ebook, and Audible. What's interesting now, since we had the quarantine, the rise in digital books and ebooks has spiked. Really? Because it was kind of flat for a while. But now it's spiked because you can imagine people can't get out to bookstores, though you can get a book delivered. But there's been a spike in digital books and ebooks. So during the past 2 months, so that's been an interesting phenomenon. It took me a long time to convert. I like turning the pages. I like having the book. I like, the actual physical piece of the book. But now I'm on a Kindle, and oh man, I'll never go back. It's just so much easier, and it's already lit up. You know what I mean? So it's really cool. But it's interesting to hear how that works, and with everybody being stuck at home and nobody wanting to leave, I imagine the download books are the electronic books are jumping out because, I know there was an old bookstore in a little town here. I live in a lake community, and there was a little bookstore. I think it's still there, but obviously not open due to the pandemic. But have you had to obviously change? Do you do a book tour? Have you had to totally alter your way that you're going to release this Hope City? I never did any book tours, though. I did a couple of book signings, and
it's still very successful doing book signings when you meet people in person. You can sit down and you can sell 20, 30 books.
Yeah.
There at a shot. And so that's, if I could sell 20, 30 books in a day, that's an amazing day. So, it's very effective for selling books, but it's also time consuming to sit there. I'd rather be writing the books than selling the books. Though
you're pumping them out. You don't have time to mess around.
Well, you have to be a book writer and a bookseller. So, and the most efficient way to be a bookseller is to do it digitally through Amazon, through social media, through my website, through blogs, through, that type of marketing rather than the physical marketing, which at this point was a good decision because no one's doing anything physical or, in person.
Yeah, right.
Going out now. So, this is certainly a way to do it under these conditions.
That's just crazy. So do you still own the company, or are you all in on the writing?
No, I still run my window covering business. I've been doing it for 35 years.
Wow.
In the New York area. Yeah, I still do it.
Like storefront window coverings, you mean? Or are you talking like awnings and canopies?
I'm talking about draperies and shades and upholstery and fabric and yeah.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So on top of pounding these books out, you're running a company. Wow. You are a busy guy. That is, I'm fascinated that you can hit that many books. To me, it just seems like such a huge feat to put together one book, much less several. I mean, it's impressive that you could do, that many. But I'm not a writer. You know what I mean? I'd rather draw stick figures than try and write a book. It's not my thing at all. But that's awesome. So so where's the direction headed? Like, still in the same type of writing? You just going to keep going with the historical stuff, or do you think you see yourself venturing out someday?
My son wants me to write a fantasy novel, like on the, something like build up a world like, Game of Thrones type thing. But, I write what I like to read. That works for me. At this point, I have will be 3 more books published this year on historical fiction.
Wow.
So I'm still there. Thinking 3 books ahead is a lot for me, but I pretty much have nailed what I want to do because the next 2 are sequels.
Yeah.
I'm doing a sequel to The Bomb Squad and a sequel to Hope City.
Oh, wow.
So the Hope City is the Alaskan Adventures of Percy Hope. So perhaps Percy Hope will have several stories. It'll be like the Sherlock Holmes or the James Bond or the Alex Cross or the Robert Langdon novels where the character continues moving on and on.
You got a fire going over there?
Me? No.
How long does it take then once that you pick the narrator in order? How long does it take for it to actually get to an actual available audio book? You kind of got me interested in this Hope City thing, man. I want to get a part of it. I might have to put her on the Kindle and actually do it the old-fashioned way.
Well, it'll be on Audible. It's going to take probably at least 6 weeks, 8 weeks before it's on Audible, I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, so do you sit down and listen to the whole thing, or do you just pick excerpts to?
No, I listen to everything because I want to make sure they got the making pronunciations correctly. Mm-hmm. No mistakes. Yes, so I have to listen to the whole thing for sure.
So do you go through and I want this person's voice to be a little different and to fix that, or do you get all that out of the gate? I mean, obviously you set it up in the beginning with.
We have a conversation about the overview of the story and how the names should be pronounced and things like that. But there are things that come up here and there, not many, a handful that have to be correct.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a, I don't want to say a small group, but there's an elite group of people who do the Audible stuff and the reading, the books on tape. And it's impressive. I follow a lot of comedians, and there's a comedian I follow who, wrote a book and he actually read it himself and it's not good. Not good at all. Like that was a bad decision.
Yeah. It's not good to rid of yourself unless you have some writers have amazing, like Neil Gaiman has an amazing voice, and he could certainly read his own.
Yeah.
But, plus I don't have the studio to do it in.
Yeah.
And also it's not just reading it, because you want to have some subtle changes in your voice and with characters. So, if you have a female character speaking with the male character, there's a slight shift in your voice, so the listener can understand that there's a different person speaking. So those type of subtleties take some skill to do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So the guy who did the Cobbler's Tale did a really good job.
He's great.
He's keeping me interested. That's for sure. Like I said, I'm about 3/4 of the way through that thing, so that's good. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to check all these out. So what other obviously running the business and writing the books. What else? You've got kids, or what are we talking here?
I got 2 grown boys. They're men, 31 and 26. Yeah. So.
Oh, you're in the clear then. You made it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you think, okay, they're grown men. You don't have to take care of them anymore. But there's always that connection you have that you never feel that's it.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. I've got 2 I've got one that's supposed to go to college in the fall, which that's a whole nother show. But and then I've got one who went last year, so potentially a freshman and a sophomore in college. And then I got a little 8th grader, and he'll be 9th now. But it feel like it's such a separation when they go away, but they never really go away. There's still so much involvement. They're so dependent on you for so many things that you just don't think of that when they're leaving. You know what I mean? So it's like, and it's interesting to hear that now years are older. Did they live in your area then?
Yeah. Well, no, my oldest son lives very close. He also works in the business with me. And my younger son lives on a farm in Vermont, and he's in a wonderful place.
Oh, wow.
So he has a great life up in Vermont. He's only been there for like 6 weeks, but yeah, it's hopefully good.
What drew him up there? Like what drew him to Vermont?
Well, he's into primitive skills, indigenous studies, foraging, plant medicine, biodynamic farming. So there's a woman who has a farm up there who also is into all that, and bees, beekeeping, and so it's a full working farm. So she offered her position. And it's a wonderful place, and it's nice and safe, away from all this madness down here, and which I'm happy, because he would be running around right now without a mask on, hugging everybody, and I'd be like, "Stop it, please, Max! You're making me crazy." So I'm glad he's up there in a much safer place, because I'm sure he's running around with no mask on, he's hugging everybody. But in Vermont,
there's a lot of fresh air up there.
Exactly.
That's exciting. Wow, how cool! That's very interesting. So the best place for people to get your stuff is where? Like, go to the website and get it directly from you, or obviously Kindle and Audible.
You can, yeah. I don't sell the books directly; they have to be purchased on Amazon. Mm-hmm. But you can go to my website and you can read a lot about what I have there, and you can go to my blog, and there's lots of interesting information. See all the reviews I've written. So you can go there just to learn more about me. It's neilperrygordon.com. And then you'll see links to Amazon on the website. So if you want to purchase the books, you can go to Amazon under Neil Perry Gordon. You'll see my books.
Very cool. What about, so what if you had to pick which one's your favorite? Like which one is like your obviously the Cobbler's Tale being the first one, you probably have a little soft spot for that. But how like if you had to pick one of the children here, which one are you picking? Well,
which one of your children are your favorite? It's like the same.
Yeah, I guess that's true. You're putting a fair amount of them out. So I'm curious if you like the way the Cobbler's Tale went or the Bomb Squad, like the different variations on the stories. Cause it just fascinates me that you can come up with that much in that amount of time. I keep going back to that, but realistically, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I don't know I always think my latest work is my best work because it's a learning process, though I still get lots of praise for Cobbler's Tale. I have over 55 4- and 5-star reviews on Amazon for it. So it was very successful, very well received, very well reviewed, and it was my first. So, but I still think that I get better as I move along because I try to improve myself as a writer. So each one to me has some sort of special meaning in that. And then when I go back and listen to them, sometimes I'll go back and I'll repost something on my blog from an older book. And I'm like, wow, I wrote that. That was pretty good. So I forget
Dust
after a while.
off the old memory bank. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you think any of them will ever become a movie? TV show?
Yeah. Well, if it was my choice, if it was my decision, I'd make them all to movies for sure.
Has there been talk? I got to think that over the course of many years, you're going to come up with people coming to you saying, "Hey, let's make this thing into a movie."
I'm ready for that. Trust me. They come ready.
That's where the big payoff is, right? When you get into the.
I'm sure it'll be a big payoff, but it'll also be a humongous massaging of my ego if that ever happened.
Yeah, that's true. You'll have to have a small part in there for yourself, right?
Walk on part. Exactly.
They what did you now you told us earlier how this all started. What'd you go to college for? Let's say it that way.
I went to college for marketing.
Really?
Yes, business degree at Pace University in Manhattan.
Oh, so have you been over there the whole in New York the whole time?
Well, in New York metropolitan area, yeah, I was born here. I did spend 10 years of my life in Florida in the 80s, from 1980 to 1990. So that's sort of sandwiched in between. But I'm a New Yorker through and through.
Wow. So you went back to that, but you couldn't, it was too slow for you in Florida or what?
Well, when my oldest son, Sam, was born, I couldn't imagine having him grow up in Florida. It's just, I needed to have more of a real experience. So we moved back up to the Northeast, back to New York. And
wow. Right in Manhattan?
No, in the suburbs.
Okay. Because that's a different way of life. But I guess if you've been there your whole life, you don't know any different. I go out there every once in a while, but man, that's just too fast paced for me. And I don't like sitting around. I like getting out and doing it, but Manhattan is just on fire all the time. It just doesn't stop. Although it'd be really interesting to see right now obviously things are picking up. Have they started opening anything there yet?
Not in the city, not yet. No,
still shut down. So on any given day, like right now, if you went out to Manhattan and you're walking around, it's just tumbleweed.
You'll see people walking in the streets. But you won't see traffic. You won't see bumper to bumper traffic like you always see. The streets are pretty much empty. It's a ghost.
Repetitive horn honking.
No pollution. It's. A lot of a day like today, it's a beautiful day in New York today. It's 65 degrees, beautiful, clear, sunny day. It'll be, the parks will be packed with people. The walkways along the rivers will be packed. I don't know how much social distancing will be going on, but there's a lot of people in Manhattan. That's why there was so much of the virus going around.
Yeah.
It's so populated.
We're all stacked up for sure. I think that they got hit the hardest there, didn't they? New York?
New York and New Jersey got to hit the hardest, yes.
Yeah, so that'll be the last open. Although my daughter's supposed to go to San Diego State in the fall, and they've already said they're not going. They already shut that down. But some of the schools, like here in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota, they're still planning as of now to have a normal fall semester, and along with Wisconsin too. So it's the middle of the country, and I think in Georgia. I think Georgia's pretty much open, aren't they?
A lot of states are. I mean, there are parts of New York that are opening, but upstate, where there's less people, so parts of New York are opening. So yeah, I think the summer everyone will be fine throughout the summer. What the real question is what's going to happen in the fall when the flu season comes back, and start getting sick again. So that's the test.
Yeah, that's not good. Do you do you know anyone who has come down with it?
There's some friends who have. They've been fine. They had to stay home, and they're okay now. a couple friends of mine. Yeah. I don't know anybody who's passed from it.
Sure. No, that's, it's hitting the elderly real hard here and everywhere, but that's, 80% of our deaths are from the elderly here in Minnesota. It's sweeping through these retirement homes like crazy. But they're the most at risk, so obviously it's going to spread like wildfire if it gets in there and starts going crazy. But I've kind of isolated myself from the news and everything so that I just don't want to hear it anymore. It's been so long of so much negativity that it's like, give me a little something positive. That'd be great. But I think we're turning the corner here in Minnesota anyway. They're going to start opening salons and restaurants in limited capacity. So could be good. Well, listen, sir, we need to wrap this thing up. Let me tell people how they can find you. Your website is Neil Perry Gordon, and you've got Twitter and Facebook, and anywhere you want to find Neil Perry Gordon, you could do that. And go check it out. Like I said, I'm in the middle of A Cobbler's Tale, and it's a great book. I'm having fun with it. I'm excited to jump into the next one and see where we end up. So we can't thank you enough for all the time, sir. I hopefully we'll run into you down the road on the next book and so on and so on. It sounds like they're going to be coming rapid fire, which I like.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, man. You have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye now. That's it. That's the end.
That's a wrap.
Read the shtick.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and tell all your friends. If you'd like to reach out, you can use the studio line at 612-504-6500 or by email, thedkprojectpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always social media at the DK Project Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.